Well, finally, I got to see this movie, The Emperor's New Groove, which is a movie from 2000, an animated Disney movie. And I've heard about this movie from back in 2000. I saw the trailers and I saw the advertisement for it, and then it disappeared slowly but surely because Disney started more and more making CGI movies, especially Pixar started being their go-to animated studio. And this movie, I've been hearing for years and years that, oh, this is funny, this is a very funny movie, and this is one of those overlooked Disney movies from their re-emergence, from their golden era from back in the 90s. And I have to be sincere that I wasn't a fan of their 90s animation. Well, I haven't seen them that many. I haven't seen Hercules. I think I've seen The Little Mermaid back in the day, like many years ago on a VHS tape. I've never seen Lion King and Hercules and the other, the Treasure of El Dorado, if I remember well. And the one with the Atlantis, which has the controversy that maybe it had stole some plot elements from Nadia's Secret of Blue Water. So yeah, I was never curious about Disney's animation from back in the 90s because, in my opinion, their animation is the problem is that animation in America, in the United States, has been seen for many years as something for children, and the philosophy behind Walt Disney and making his animated movies that they are made for children, and they have some elements for the adults, but especially they are targeted for kids. And to be sincere, I like a lot of their older movies. I've seen Dumbo and Snow White and Pinocchio. Those I've seen them many times on VHS and for many years. Oh yeah, and I remember now another animated movies of theirs from the 90s. I saw the Beauty and the Beast. And I've seen The Sword in the Stone. I'm more, I think, of a fan of their animation from the 50s and 40s and 60s. And The Jungle Book, I liked it a lot. And I want to see someday, I want to re-see it. I have it like in my queue for some time to see Alice in Wonderland. That one... people look on this channel, I'm gonna make that review for Alice in Wonderland someday. I'm curious for the moment how this review will do on my channel, and at the same time if Disney will block my review. But yes, so I heard about this movie for so many years, The Emperor's New Groove, and I remember the advertisement, as I said before. I remember the trailers, and I kept hearing that it's one of those gems that should be given a chance, and Disney didn't want to make that many animated movies anymore, classically animated movies, because they weren't making the money that movies such as Toy Story and Bug's Life and Toy Story 2 and yeah, this movie was like on a budget of 100 million, and it brought to the box office $169 million. So yeah, I kind of understand why they were so disappointed, but I think part of the production money of the budget, 100 million, you don't pay 100 million for a movie that is 78 minutes long. And yeah, the animation is amazing. It hasn't aged one day, in my opinion. I can't believe this is a animated movie from back in the 2000, just 2000, and it doesn't have nothing that's made on CGI, or at least I didn't observe something that was made in CGI. I think part of the movie budget went in the production, because this movie, and the reason that I finally got to see it was because I heard about this unofficial documentary called The Sweatbox. And when I heard about this documentary, it was like, oh, so this movie, besides being funny and one of those overlooked animated movies from Disney, it had a lot of production problems, and it shows you what happens behind the development of a movie, and that subject is very interesting for me. So yeah, I saw first the documentary, and then I was like, okay, now I have this new vision of the movie for me. Now let me see the movie. And I'll first talk about the movie, and then I'll get to the documentary. Maybe I'll talk from one to the other and bring it back. You know, who knows? I'm surprising like that. And The Emperor's New Groove is a 2000 animated Disney movie, which I think it was just on the cusp before Disney was starting to start making CGI movies. Apparently, after The Emperor's New Groove, they started implementing a lot of CGI in their classically animated movie. For example, Atlantis: The Lost Empire is they talk here in the article for Wikipedia that they started making CGI inside of this kind of movies. And The Emperor's New Groove is the story of Emperor Cusco, who is played by David Spade, and he is like a lazy emperor, and at the same time he doesn't care about his people. And one day he gets the idea to fire his advisor Isma, played by Eartha Kitt, the wonderful Eartha Kitt. And he does this mistake, and Eartha Kitt with Isma, with her help, Kronk, played by Patrick Warburton. Patrick Warburton, before he became one of the most famous voice actors of the 2000s. She wants to poison the king, but accidentally she gives him a potion that turns him into a llama. And he arrives in one of his villages, where he is helped by Pacha, John Goodman's character. He is helped to be brought back to his empire, to be turned back to a human. And to be sincere, I don't really remember a story that was similar to this one. Well, there are plenty of stories where a king who is very egotistical, he is brought back, he is stripped of his powers, and then he finally realizes that he was wrong and he should go back to being a more humble king. And I think one of the examples that I could bring that reminds me of this movie would be the first 4 movie from back in 2011. So 4 stole the plot from Emperor's New Groove. Well, no, I'm kidding. I think the story has been written before, but this was an interesting twist. I really don't remember other movies that have similar plots like this. What I do remember is let's talk a little about the documentary, The Sweatbox. Originally, this movie apparently should have been like a mix between The Prince and the Pauper and somewhat of a romantic comedy. Well, initially they wanted it to make it more serious. They wanted to be one of their first animated movies that from the 2000s, because Disney tried with the Black Cauldron, I think, to make an serious animated movies, but this was one of their first tries to make an animated movie in their 90 end of their 90s era, because this movie apparently was in development since 1997, and this movie was a mix with Prince of the Pauper and romantic comedy, and at the same time the main plot should have been like the Devil's Double, where the prince finds someone who looks a lot like him, a peasant, and initially he wants to kill this peasant because he can't have someone in his kingdom that looks like him. But this other character, which should have been played by Owen Wilson. Oh wow. He was like, no, don't kill me, I'll just do the boring stuff for you, and you just take care of the fun stuff as a king. And then he was turned by Eartha Kitt into a llama, and initially his name was Manco, if I remember well, and as David Spade said, no, apparently in Japan Manco means pussy or something like that, and that's why we changed it to Cusco, something like that. So that was a pretty funny part in this movie. And yeah, that was, although this is one of the things that I like to talk about in many movies, although this wasn't that much of an original idea, maybe the execution would have been more interesting. But from what the producers said when they went into the Sweatbox, apparently the movie didn't have a clear point. It was a mixed bag of a lot of ideas and wasn't concentrated enough. So maybe they had a better idea to turn it from somewhat of a romantic movie to because at one point Owen Wilson's, because I said that it's a romantic movie, but I didn't explain why. At some point Owen Wilson's character was supposed to fall in love with another character from the kingdom, and he couldn't tell her that he is just a peasant, he's not the king. That was interesting. Maybe it would have made me more curious to see the movie back then, because one of the reasons I think I never got to see this movie for 20 years was because it's kind of seemed, the title of the movie seemed a lot of kind of pandering to me. Oh, this is groovy, man, you know, the title seemed pandering to me, and that's also another interesting thing that I would like to point out, because the original title of the movie was supposed to be Kingdom of the Sun. So that's very interesting, because that's a more interesting title, a title that makes you think like, oh, this is an epic movie. This is a movie about a lost civilization. Yeah, it was an interesting thing. And let's go back to the Emperor's New Groove. I really liked the character. The characters. David Spade is a very good leading man, and this movie turned out to be a body comedy, so you can't have David Spade without John Goodman's character Pacha. And I really liked the chemistry between these two guys. They were very funny throughout the movie. I'm not gonna spoil the jokes in the movie, and especially I want to say, don't watch the trailer for this movie, because it spoils a lot. Although I show trailers during my reviews, maybe don't see it with audio. And also the Isma and Krong had great chemistry. They were a lot of fun though. This movie was very fun for me. I had an amazing time watching it, and to be sincere, it kind of makes me curious to give a chance to other um, Disney animated movies from back in the 90s. So let me say this another time. I saw from their list no. So I only saw Mulan. Yeah. Mulan I saw. Beauty and the Beast and The Little Mermaid. So maybe you guys can recommend me in the comments what movies from, what do you think your only movie that you would recommend me from the 90s era of Disney. Which one would you recommend me to must see it and maybe make a review for this channel? And if I yeah, I'll give it a chance. I'll see it if you guys recommend me just one of these, and if it repeats more than once, then I'm gonna see it. So all in all, I would give the Emperor's New Groove an 8 out of 10. And for the documentary, the Sweatbox, so this was such an amazing experience. So apparently it was directed by Trudy Styler, who is Sting's wife. And the documentary started as a deal between Sting and Disney. He was like, okay, if you guys want me to make to do the soundtrack, to write some music for, apparently he wrote like 4 songs to the original idea of the movie, and only one survived the rewrites. Only one of Sting's songs survived the rewrites, and for him, he even tells this during the documentary. For him, this was like a new experience to compose music that doesn't have nothing to do with him, that isn't something personal. He just has to write songs for another product, and at the same time he receives feedback from a committee, and then he has to change that song so that he pleases the committee. That was such an interesting thing for him to say. And at another point of the movie, he's like, wait, I think I wrote it down here. Let me paraphrase. So because apparently the initial draft of the movie, the initial script of the movie was more culture, was talking more about the culture of Peru, I think they said. And he was like, you take the best of different cultures, then the studio machine sucks them all up and spits out a hamburger for people to mass consumption. Well, he's kind of being harsh, because the movie shows that that you have to make the executive happy for your movie. Yes, they are. You are killing your baby, as some of the writers were saying, but this is the interesting thing that people don't understand, especially about classical hand-drawn animation. Classical hand-drawn animation is very expensive, and that sometimes at one point in history, the United States, because as one of the main people behind animation was saying that it's shameful in the United States. It's seen as something shameful to be an animator for in America, but in a European country, it's seen very prestigious. So the animators from Europe were very good at doing their jobs, but the United States don't see that well, the animation, so it's very expensive to be done. That's why they outsourced a lot of animation, and they even outsourced it to Korea, I think, because I saw at the end of The Emperor's New Groove, like, there were a lot of animators that were clearly Asian. And that was the that is one of the problems that I think was prevalent in the American cultures for many years, that animation is seen like something made for children, and in countries as Europe and in countries as Japan, animation is seen more like something for adults and for children and for young adults and for teens and for teenagers. And that's a problem because an executive risks losing a lot of money if not his animated movie, because it's the writer's creation and the director's creation, but it's the producer's money, the studio's money, and he can't risk a lot of money. And as we've seen, it was like $100 million, which was used to pay David Spade, John Goodman, Eartha Kitt, Sting, and this production was for 3 years, and it's very expensive to risk all of that money for something that maybe it won't be sold that well for a lot of people. You want to maximize your profit, and that's a problem where you have with a movie that, yeah, it's more interesting to see a movie that is the pure vision of a director or even a director writer, but you have to understand that animation is very expensive. That's why I understand that the production for this movie had so many issues, and it was fascinating to see how frustrated this thing got throughout the production of this movie, and how his hairstyle changed throughout. You could see the time passing. He even says at one point, like, we become old men during the production of this movie. That was very funny. That was very interesting, and I think you could also say that this movie shows this documentary shows a little how Sting is as a person, especially because he's being filmed by his wife. So that was very interesting, and there were those parts that they were showing that they had this mother character, the wife of Pacha, which initially they didn't know they're gonna use, and then maybe they were gonna use it for a little, then maybe a lot, and then no, we're not gonna use it at all, and in the end we saw her during the Emperor's New Groove. That was so interesting, that you can lose characters that you worked so much for, and the character of Eartha Kitt, how nuanced and interesting she was at the start of I'm not saying that the final product wasn't good, but still there were some interesting details that you could observe for Eartha Kitt's character Isma at the start of the production. It was such an interesting experience, and I use this term a lot, but this movie is also like a time capsule, because you could see Sting, how young he used to look, and it's an interesting thing. And especially I liked at the end of the production of the movie how they showed the animators behind the movie, the minds behind the movie, when they were shown the McDonald's products and the game. That was so interesting to see the behind the scenes of a movie. And I'm not gonna say, oh, Walt Disney is the devil and they have ruined this vision of the original, and maybe the other movie was perfection and something historical and bring back the empire under the sun, or how. No, I understand what is happening, that they risk losing money. And it was interesting to see how they changed the composers of the movies, because they didn't. I don't want to spoil that much. The documentary is available on YouTube and an archive site and other mediums. I'm not gonna. You search it for yourself and you're gonna find it. and it's online, and it should be seen, and Disney shouldn't be ashamed of it. It's a interesting product, and the final movie that they produced, it was very interesting. And I always knew about this dailies that movies usually have, when they showed at time to time, they show how a movie is going and how are they producing. And apparently the Sweatbox is the term that they use in animation. Especially Walt Disney had like this room that didn't have air conditioning, and everyone was sweating because their product that they worked for months and months was scrutinized in under 10 minutes. And those people who criticize your product, they have to be like polite and pleasant, and they make jokes because they don't want the animation team to get in depression or something horrible happen to them. And it was interesting to see that they tried saving some of their original ideas. Apparently the original movie had a mascot, and there was a scene where you could see that tiny mascot in the final product. And there was a scene when a funny scene when Yzma poisoned the plant, and you could see something the same that happened in the final product. So yeah, it's a very good documentary made for a movie for the Emperor's New Groove that I really liked. And Emperor's New Groove was very funny. I enjoyed it a lot. They had like jokes happening all the time, so I don't regret seeing the movie, and I don't regret seeing this documentary. Wow, this documentary was also very, very good. I give the documentary an 8 out of 10. Thank you for listening.